Shalom, Kol Halal Yahawashi Bahashem Qadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so, now more so than ever. To the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners, and to the Akwath that are listening and learning. To you, I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago. And this is going to be the last and final lesson of the Alexander the Great, the Israelites, and the pseudo Greek, rulership. And I'm going to open up with scriptures you have heard, but it's only fitting. This is First Maccabees, the first chapter and the first verse, and it reads, "And it happened that after Alexander the son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, had smitten Darius the king of the Persian Medes, that he reigned in his stead," meaning his race, his people, "the first over Greece." So he was the first to reign over the brown-skinned people of that were actually the true residents or the true Europeans. Alexander reigned over them, and then he just kind of adopted their ways of life. You can read that in the Josephus. All right, and then they just went on as if they were people derived of themselves, but in actuality they had taken over someone else's land and someone else's heritage, which they continued to do throughout their existence up until this day. So let's jump to the 7th verse. All right, and it says, "So Alexander reigned 12 years, then died." All right, and this, matter of fact, let me go back. I'm gonna read verse 2. Verse 2: "And he made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth, and went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up." So he spoiled all the nations of the known world, which was all the Northern African, Central African countries, and all the European and Far East nations. All right, that he actually reached to. He took them all down and he ruled over them. And you also have to realize too, just like on this picture, it's showing you how Europe went from this to this. Alexander and his men on his campaign lightened up many of the races. Look at the so-called Asian people today collectively. In China and Japan, there's a lot of pale Asians now. But if you look at their art and the relics that come in their history, and if you go there, you're gonna see how many dark people are there. There are people in Asia that are just as dark and darker than a lot of Negroes in Cambodia and Thailand. I've seen these people. There's people in Japan and China who actually has woolly hair. Okay, so Alexander and his army, they did a great damage, when they went over and did what they did. Now we jump to verse 7. "So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death they all put on crowns upon themselves, and so did their sons many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth." All right, so this is when his race of people, the Edomites, had now taken over, and they were constantly at war with one another because there was peace among them before the death of Alexander. As a matter of fact, they murdered Alexander's wife and his son because they wanted to make sure he had no heir to make any claim to any of the thrones. And then the bickering and the infighting between his 4 generals. All right, so this started the rule of the Edomite. All right, the Grecian Empire, which Jacob was in it. As a matter of fact, let's turn. It says this right here. It says, "Blacks in antiquity, Ethiopians in the Greco-Roman Roman experience." All right, so Ethiops, the word Ethiopian just means dark flesh. It's a generic term before it was actually labeled on a race of people. So we're going to read through some of this book. So let me read this description in 2nd Ezra first. This is 2nd Ezra 7:28. For my son Yahawashi shall be revealed with those that be with him, and they that remain shall rejoice within 400 years. So this is the 400 year period of the Roman of the Greco-Roman experience with the Israelites. All right, and there's just so many things in this book that hinted that, you know, the presence of dark people in Europe, which is not explained, and these are people of clearly of you know, people of relevance, because like we said when we were going into the other book, you know, you don't have statues and relics of your slaves all over the place. If that was the case, America would be full. The American South would be full of images of slaves, you know, in museums and things like that, on display that will be worth, that go, you know, like these statues here. And this was that Grecian, this Hellenization period. I may have even no, it was a different image in the other book, but these are so-called Negroes. All right, you can clearly see their features. Let me see if I can bring this one closer without hitting the stand. But you can clearly see the Negroid features. And that one, you know, as usual, the lips and nose are destroyed off of that one. But this was when the Hellenists, the people that were living in the Greekish fashion, as they would call it, the Greekish fashion. And these were Israelites in Rome. All right, you see, in Greece, in Rome, and through that Roman Greco Empire. All right, images of so-called black children. And I can only imagine the pedophilia and the things that was going on with our people, being, you know, in the midst of these Edomites. See, that's a so-called Negro on that chariot right there, running down an Edomite. All right, that's an you can see the Negro, the woolly afro, the woolly hair, and yeah, and he's on his chariot running down an Edomite, man. So, yeah, a marble. It says a marble relief of a charioteer from Herculean, 1st century A.D. All right. Now they had a movie called Year One. Where was this guy? All right. 1st century A.D. Flat nose, thick lips, subnasal, prognathism. All right, and this is in Naples in 1908. All right, so these are the things that they just conveniently leave out of history. This is a pugilist. All right, statues of boxers, late Hellenistic, tightly curled hair, closed nose, and tightly curled. That was a description of woolly hair, tightly curled hair. All right, in the Winston Simplified Encyclopedic Edition. All right, and that hair and that type of hair was what associated with the Negroid type. So you gotta explain. All right, and it always leads me back to that same. See, this was also in the other book. On the other side, this is the one where Hercules who wasn't a so-called white man, was on the other side of this very vase, destroying and killing all those what they were called Egyptians and Ethiopians. No, those were Europeans. So they put the label Ethiopian on these people because they're trying to make it as if the Ethiopians were. Well, no. So why were all these Ethiopians ruling in positions of power in Egypt? I mean, Salakia, and Egyptians have all this power in Europe. You know, during the Greek period. See, where are the movies and the relics and the history taught on that? See, because they're lying. These were the inhabitants that were still there. All right, that had been conquered and then eventually took over. All right, because you got to remember, man, Septimius Severus and Septimius, you have Septimius Severus and Persinius Niger or Persinius Nigger, right? Because they say Niger, but I've proven to you through the dictionary that it was actually pronounced nigger because it wasn't a derogatory term at first. That came later on during the time of slavery. It was just a description, like calling someone black. It was a physical description, but not actual. Okay. But once again, it talks about Memnon in the front of this book And here's the images of Memnon right there. And look, and I'm gonna bring it to the camera so you can read it. And I did videos like this in the past, but they deleted them all. All right, it says the details of Memnon and the Negroes and black figured neck. It says neck amphora. Right here it says detail of one of Memnon's Negro companions from black figured neck amphora, and this was 540 to 530 BC. All right, and I wrote it down. 540 years before Yahawashi came, 200 years before Alexander. All right, in 330 BC, which is right about right, because Alexander's father died in 336 BC. And so Alexander took over, and because it was prophesied that he would be the one to take down, and conquer and all that whole sort of thing. All right, so Memnon was a son of Japheth. All right, these right here are your real Europeans right here. These men with this woolly hair. All right, but because what did Esau do? I keep this. There it is. They tell you that this was Memnon in Troy, but none of the people on here match the relics. All right, none of the people on here match the relics. As a matter of fact, we're going to go back to the front of the book, and there's so much information in this book. I could do tons of lesson out of this book, but I want to go to page 20 in the introduction. Is it 20 where it said it? Yeah, 22. All right. And it reads, art in some respects, all right, more valuable than literature, because they write what they want in their books. Why? Because the art and the relics tell you a truth that their literature does not, that they leave out. All right. Because this right here, how many books have you read about the Iliad and about, Achilles and all that stuff? And even though Achilles, they weren't real people, but the wars and the things that took place were. All right. So it says, art in some respects more valuable than literature as a source of information for anthropological data, because it tells us much that the text does not, and about the amount of pragmatism and total absence, that the extent of plethora and lip perversion. I don't know how to pronounce that word. I've never seen that word. I've had trouble with it in the past. But it says, and lip perversion and facial proportions. So basically, what it's pointing out is that the relics that are dug up tell you a different story than what Esau Edom puts into his schools and his colleges and his universities and into his textbooks. So once again, I'm going to bring out this, Psalms 85 and 11, which is the earth, gave forth the witness to prove that the Esau Edom, the so-called white man, was a liar. All right. And this is Psalms 85 and 11. It says, truth shall spring out of the earth, and righteousness shall look down from heaven. All right. So the truth came out of the earth. The Lord buried the truth, and then they went and dug it up. All right. So the relic on here. This is showing you how Europe went from Europa, from this dark woman, to the Edomites taking over. All right. Matter of fact, one more scripture, and then we'll close it down, which is Psalms 49 and 11. Let's get that real quick. And it reads, their inward thoughts is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after themselves. That's what they did. Call Halal, Yahawah, Shai, Qadash, YAHAWADAH, Shalom.